Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips thing. Me, this. I'm driving the bus again. Sorry. With your host, Anne, and unfortunately we do not have disembodied voice Justin, as he was summoned downstairs for a meeting, or maybe he's at home and he was summoned like via phone to a meeting. I'm not sure, but summoned the Justin they did, and so we do not have a Justin riding herd on us right now, although he may return. We hope he returns eventually. Hey, I'm Fontana. Thank you for the sub. Awesome. We are getting, I think we probably are close to a third of the way to our sub goal again already for our next AMA and giveaway. Hello, everybody. Hello. Unsupervised. Indeed, we are unsupervised. Yeah, but the minute we say that is when Reaper Dave typically gets on and kind of bogeys the chat, so... Indeedy, good morning. Good morning. Here we are. We're a little sleepy. Kiri woke me up a bit during the night last night, so I'm still combobulating, if you know what I mean. You're in time for a stream. Yes, Enceladon Oceans. Good job. Yeah. Your hellos to Justin are in vain, as he is not with us this morning briefly. He had to go to a meeting. So we're going to go with Rock Troll. It's Rock Troll time. Let's see here. What were we using? We're mostly using Dungeon Dwellers with Rock Troll. But I want to get out all my colors that I was using. Lots of greens and yellows. Let's see here. Let's go down to Minicam. There we are. There's our Rock Troll. I don't think I need Kobold Scale. I'm pretty sure I just used Goblin for his lips and ears and nose. And so we're going to continue that trend for his hands. The flesh of his hands to mix it up a little bit. So I don't think I need those. Got my boxes of Dungeon Dweller paint here. Easy way to keep track of them since I've been lately running them through their paces. And we'll do another PDF on the... We're into these now. We're past the monster colors now for my PDFs on the Patreon. Yeah. Awesome. Everybody's here. Yep, it's Mr. Rock Troll. I decided I wanted to paint his arm because it was bothering me that his shoulder didn't have light on it. Like the rest of him has light on it there. So let's see. I might need some Eldritch Purple if I'm going for those gemstones. I think that's all I might need, though. I think that's pretty good. Oh, yeah, that's right. We were using Vampiric Mist for our white highlight. Got it. Okie dokie. Well, that's a good start. Let's just go with that. So, yay. How's everybody today? I'm a little sleepy, but how are the rest of you? Let's see. I need... Oh, nose! You know what I forgot? I forgot my wet palette. So that means that I have to use a well palette to try to do this. But that's doable. So we'll do it. I do need to get it in frame, however. I have many things blocking up my frame. Alright, Dungeon Dwellers, it's time to go and live elsewhere. Also, I have these... snakes of sticky tack that were keeping me in line yesterday. So let's see. Let's set these paints up in a nice row where I can easily reach them. And then we can progress. Oh, you can order them online just by item number, Gurgi. I mean, if you're on my Patreon and you're at $5 level or higher, I've been going over the uses for these Dungeon Dweller paints in PDFs. So there's one that covers the first 3 and second 3 of the monster colors. So, I mean, what I would advise you to do is simply go and look at those PDFs and look at the qualities of the paint and the uses that I give in those PDFs, and then make your decision on whether you need them. I mean, there are certainly other colors in the Korra range that you could use in similar ways. But I know a lot of people bought these sets or had them from ReaperCon, and so that's why I wanted to kind of look at them, because I think they don't get a lot of play, but they're actually really useful colors. Oh, 5-day vacation. I'm so jealous, Image. Yeah, Twitch. Silly Twitch. Thanks, Mike Disney. Yeah, well, you know, we started him a while ago, and these days I'm trying to get kind of a rotating slate of projects that I'm working on stream, just so that eventually we finish a bunch of things. So Troll, I decided I wanted to work on him today. And he was like I was using a wet palette on him and doing dramatic lighting. So we did the torso and we started on the crystals. I'm glad you like him. All right. Corey's having a great morning. Good. I mean, honestly, Dragon Eye, if you search for Rock Troll, you should get it, or for his SKU 44002, one or the other. Justin doesn't always put the name in the title line, but he almost always uses the SKU, I think, or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, blending white into anything dark is hard, Kerniko. It really is, because the white adds opacity, and it really means you get brush strokes unless you thin it way, way down. And even then, it's full of glazing. Next Monday, back to work, Izzy. Well, that could be a relief, though. Because money, right? Hey, Xandercles. Good morning, Daffodweir. Yeah, you're screaming. It's Good Morning Vietnam from Daffodweir. I mean, it's not a need thing. With paint, it's never a need thing. Like, the only paints that I ever say you need or really want after you see me use them is the clear brights and the liners. Like, those are the unique Master Series things. Everything else, your mileage may vary. It's what colors do you like? What colors do you want to work with? There are a couple of unique ones in the Dungeon Dwellers color set. I use Succubus Kiss a lot. I really like the Troll Skin for, or Troll Hide for just being a really rich saturated olive. That's really, for me, very useful because I like working with olive greens. And the Goblin Skin and the Kobold Scale are really unique colors. Hey, Neural, thank you for the sub. Fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's never, with paint, it's never need, right? It's just like, if you do like look at the colors and think, oh, that orange with the Goblin Skin is exactly what I've been looking for, then yeah, then you need that color. Or that Succubus Kiss looks really useful for the stuff that Anne was using it on. You know, I used it on the black hair for the Banshee. Did you keep the Banshee, David? David really liked the Banshee, and I think he ran off with her. Should I be scared, guys?
Come on.
So this is what I was working on yesterday. Here, let's get her in focus. There we go. Let's zoom. There she is. There's our little Banshee, or sorry, Wraith, that we were working on that I wanted to have coming out of the etherealness. So I used, for example, Succubus Kiss, which is a Dungeon Dweller's color, for her hair base. So that's, you know, things like that. It's just like, oh, I really like that look, and so I want to try that. And there's no other color like Succubus Kiss in our line. There's nothing. So, yeah, David says my Banshee Wraith now. That's kind of what he did last night, Twisted Nova. I was like, oh, maybe I would sell this one or send her to Reaper. And he's like, I like her. So she might, and she's David color scheme. David color scheme is red and teal, by the way. Like, if you look at his work, you see red and teal sneaking in a lot. Not everywhere, but a lot. We all have color crutches, right? And purple and gold tends to be mine.
Is that a crutch?
I call it a color crutch. It's the color set that you really like, that you're very comfortable with, and that you know how to really put through its paces. And so I kind of call that a color crutch sometimes because I want to push myself a little more on color.
But it's not just in my work, too. I mean, there's so many times that we're going to, like, an art gallery or an art museum, and I will say, hey, I like that piece.
And I'll say red and teal.
And I won't even notice, like, consciously at first that it's red and teal, and then, like, I'll start looking at it more, and I'll be like, oh, of course I like it. It's my color scheme.
Yes, exactly. So, yes. Oh yeah, chat. Anybody can help Gurgi out. On he's wondering who got the paint sets from the last giveaways. So if you got one if you won the Reaper Gurgi away, and you got the paint set, the starter paint set from it, then you should let Gurgi know, please. Awesome. So we'll put, now that I've reclaimed my Wraith, at some point we'll come back and do the back. Borrowed back my Wraith. I guess it's not my Wraith anymore. I guess I have to finish the back and present it to my beloved as a gift. That's the guessing. Quote unquote gift. In other words, he's going to steal it if I don't. All right. There we go. So there's David. David comedy for you this morning, everybody. All right. You won the Gurgi away, but not the paint. Okay. Well, we can say that it's not M. Grunig then. Your color crush. Oh, that's a better word for it, Kerniko.
I do like it better. Yeah.
Color crush? Yeah, red and blue-gray. Yeah, I've liked that one in the past a lot. Yeah, so I totally feel that. So David's color crush. Samurai Jack posted that they won in RTB Pro Tips on Discord, but no idea if he got the card or the set, huh? Oh, okay. Email said that Painting Cricks won the paint set last week, M. Groening says. Okay, so M. Groening says that's the thingy. So, all right, I'm going to load up my palette while you guys are doing all this. I don't know where I put my wet palette. Like, I actually think... Oh, there it is. All right, so I did find it, but I do not have it ready because I have failed. So instead, I must work with a totally different... work with the well palette in this style, which is not as easy. There are things that are easier with certain implements, and working wet on wet blending with thicker paint is definitely not the strong point of the well palette. The wet palette does much better with this. Yes, a paint crush a color crush can become a color crutch if you lean on it too much. Absolutely, Izzy. That's a great way to put it. That's why I try to mix it up. Although I do tend to go, like, given the choice between red, orange, blue, and green, orange, purple, I tend to always go green, orange, purple when given the chance, thus you can see. Thank you, Hagar. Yeah, he's nice. This is a great model. They were out of stock last we checked, but you should always check up on him and think about getting him. He's really nice. So we can do this two ways. I painted a bit of the back of his leg just real quick with layering instead of wet blending as a demo for one of my Patreon PDFs to show that you can shade this color with purple, which I did down there and here. But, so that was using, I think it was using Knoll Pelt. But you can also, and what I did, I think, on the front of here is instead of highlighting your troll hide with the Knoll Pelt, which is perfectly good, you can also just mix in ogre skin, and you will get something similar to Knoll Pelt. It's a little bit different. It's maybe not quite as yellow, which is interesting. But yeah, and then I would think I was mixing in a little bit of our Vampiric Mist for a white to bring it up light here on the light up here. So, oh, back in stock in the US. Great! Hey, Nomadzik. Alrighty. So yeah, so I'll get some Knoll Pelt on here, and I'll keep it open just in case I want it, but I seem to recall that I used a lot of just troll hide mixed with ogre skin and with a touch of the Vampiric Mist for the initial start of this troll. But yeah, so Otter Mama says Troll is back in stock. You should totally get him. He is a great, fun model. He is also great for practicing your gemstones. Wait. Can we get in focus here, Troll? No, Troll, get in focus. No, it wants to get the paint. It always does this to me. Get in focus. Now I demand. There we go. So, like, if you want to practice gemstones, this is your baby, obviously. And you could do it really simple, kind of like I did with blocking in shadows and the main, and then just figuring out a light source, and that's where your bright facets are, and that, you know, carries the effect. Or you can go in detail like I did on this gem, this big gem here. I would advise doing this big gem or one of the other big gems on his back as an example of how it should look, because then you don't have to have your reference photo anymore. You can extrapolate everything else based on what you did here. So that's nice to have. So do one gem up to the 9s, as it were, and then go down. So here we go. We're going to go back down here. I want focus. No, I don't want focus on the... It loves to focus on the paint bottles. It absolutely loves to. There we go. Because the typing is so tight, so it's able to. Hi, Taveria. Thank you. Lucky number 13 for the subs. Awesome. Looking at his tan, khaki, and gray is your color crush, Comrade Corey. So you like muted colors. That's cool. That's cool. That's actually cool and unusual. A lot of people prefer saturated colors, bright colors. Yeah, so Alpha GG, if you don't want to leave brush marks, you've got to thin your paint, or you have to wet blend. It's one or the other. And wet blending even still often will leave brush marks, just slight ones that you should, you know, if you want a smooth blend. And you don't always have to have a smooth blend. Remember that. It's good to learn how to do one. It's good to learn how not to leave brush marks for when you don't want brush marks. But it is not like necessary to be smooth on every surface. So Remember that. A little bit of texture can sometimes be good. And if you're having real trouble with smooth blends, you should keep working on it. But there are also ways you can try to... Oh, boy, these paints need to be shaken up today. They're like, nope, you put us away. We all fell out of solution when you put us away. That's the paint. That's a paint voice for Dungeon Dwellers. But yeah, I did a lot of wet blending on this guy. So he's a lot of... And when I say wet blending, I mean that I put down a wet coat of paint, of troll hide specifically, and then I mushed in ogre skin while it was still wet. And then actually on the shoulder here, I think I did some glazing. But yeah, so you can achieve smooth blends without brush marks in two ways. You may smoosh the paint together when it is wet. Wet blending is what I call that. Two brush blending is an example of wet blending. So if you have heard of that technique, that is another way that you can do that. Or you can use wet into dry, which is putting wet paint over a dry surface like this, and that would be layering. Or there are a couple other people call it by a couple other names, but I call it layering. But layering requires very thin paint. So what you're hearing then, and you'll see then why I used a wet palette to set up Mr. Troll here. I was doing wet on wet with thicker paint. That's what wet palettes are really good at. But when I want thin paint to do really fine, smooth blending, then I go to the wet palette. Because I want to be able to control my paint consistency extremely well. Kiwi, you gotta go settle. What are you doing, Restless Dog? We have Restless Dog, guys. We might have tail sign. And there's no Justin to, like, come in and entertain y'all. So if I have to run out the door, you should entertain yourselves. That's what you should do. So just a heads up. Yeah, and I haven't even really done the gems except for that one. Like, I've highlighted precisely a couple others of these. Can you settle? Do you need to go? What's up, pretty girl? Come here. What's up? What's up? Hi. Oh, or do we not have the AC on? We do not have the AC on. David, could you turn on the air conditioning?
Okay.
I don't know if that's why Restless Dog is restless, but...
Are you hot?
She's a hot dog. You've gotten good at entertaining yourselves.
Would be good on a stick.
Oh, you're not a hot dog. All right, she's like, I'm not at a Renaissance fair, therefore I do not belong on a stick. Good girl. Can you settle now? Is it going to get a lot more comfortable in here? Sometimes she's just warm, and sometimes she's trying to give me a preempt that she needs to go. So we'll see if she settles. You a good girl. Yeah, good settle. So we have a reprieve for now, guys. The old dog colon may activate, but is not activating at the moment. Oh, I almost forgot. I need my black indigo. Because that's the one non-Dungeon Dweller color that I did. And this will be coming out for Bones 5. I'm going to pop a bunch of that in there. But I have to make sure I keep my shadows dark because we want a really dramatic lighting effect here, remember? So I want to keep this dark indigo-y shadow on the underside of the arm. So I want to have that paint open then because in doing my wet blending here, I'm probably going to kind of wipe that out a little bit. Or there's a high chance of it using a bigger brush. I may just want to also repaint it, make it a little darker. So this is me putting paint, wet paint into wet paint and blending it together. Now, I will say that as with all paint techniques, some people are going to get it right away and some people are going to struggle with it. Wet blending is one of those techniques that I always tell somebody is not core. It's not necessary to be able to do wet blending to be a great painter. Because some people struggle with wet blending, especially if you're in a very arid climate. Chances are you may struggle with it. And that's just because, you know, if you're in a really dry climate, it can be hard to get the paint to stay wet for long enough to do the blend. So that's definitely a thing. And you should never feel like you have to have this technique to go forward. But it is a very useful technique to have in your toolbox. Because it is possible to do small spot blends at that point. If you're looking for a quick blend to set things up so that you can go back with layering and refine it. I'm just entering in. Let me see. Hold on. Hi, Achilles Blade. Yay, me indeed. Mom, I'm getting a little hot under the collar here. Yes, Twisted Oma. I think that may have been her problem. We'll see. There is probably a 90% chance of Q emergency today. All right. Hey, Canadian Gecko. Good to see you. It is easier to practice wet blending on large surfaces. Curved or flat does not really matter. If you've got high humidity, then you should try wet blending because it's going to be easy for you. It's going to be very, very simple, which could be good. So when I'm working on a well palette, like say I forgot my wet palette, and I would normally be doing this on a wet palette for sure, I may use the top of my wells to create smaller puddles of paint to use in my mixes. Now, unfortunately, because I'm putting this up on a flat surface, it's not going to stay wet for very long, especially because it doesn't have a lot of water in it. So I have to keep that in mind and work fast. So I've got to lay down, and usually when I'm doing wet blending, I'll go muscle by muscle. So I'll do one muscle section at a time, because that's just easier to blend one muscle at a time, because you have to work while the paint is a certain level of wetness. And if you don't, then you are inviting catastrophe. You will essentially get tons of brush strokes. So that being said, work fast and do one section. If you're working on a big troll or ogre, and I've done this for a while where on large models like this, if I want a fast blend on the muscle groups, I will do wet blending for it. Because it just sets everything up quicker. But you do have to kind of work in groups then, because otherwise everything will dry while you're painting one section. Let's see. I want stronger light on that shoulder though, because remember, we're going dramatic here. So what I think I'm going to do is the color that I'm mixing is just a little lighter and yellower than the knoll pelt. So I'm going to add some of my ogre skin and some of my vampiric mist into my knoll pelt, and I'm just going to mix that up and make the color that I want to have in a well, where it's going to stay wet longer. So far, I have not thinned these paints. I may have put like a half a brush full of water into these guys just because I was mixing them up. Haven't really touched any of the rest of these. I've kept them full strength. You can thin a bit when you want to do wet blending. And actually, since we have a base coat put down, we could thin quite a bit when it comes to the paint, especially if you don't want a lot of thick goopies. So let's try that. Let's put just a little bit. The thing is, you still want to get some coverage out of it. So you don't want to thin it too much. But at this point, like 6 drops of paint and 1 drop of water, that 1 drop of water will do a lot to help keep it wet in the palette. This is again why I prefer to use a wet palette if I'm going to be doing this technique with thicker paint, because it's going to keep my paint wet for longer. Now, the upside of doing this on the well palette is that once I've added my 1 brush full of water to each of these paints, they're going to stay at that consistency pretty long, because I'm using big paint puddles. The more paint you put in your well, the longer it'll stay at the correct consistency. Whereas on a wet palette, it will definitely have water leach up into it slowly and probably become thinner as time goes on as you're painting. So, let's see here. Yeah, Daffodweir. So you may find in Arizona and other states like it, like high desert, like up in Santa Fe where I like to visit, yeah, in Southern California where Autorama is, you guys will have a harder time getting wet blending to work probably. You may struggle with it. I'm actually going to add some of this vampiric mist into my ogre as well, since I like to, I'm working with light, so I want to have all my colors be a little lighter. Somebody asked how I was able to dip my brush into a well and not leave a puddle of that color in the well, and you just saw me remove an earlier puddle from here. The answer is to get most of your paint off your brush, and then you should be able to dip into this well without leaving any yellow in it, or green, or whatever you're working with. Now, the nice other thing... yeah, Pennsylvania. Kind of like Wisconsin where I grew up, where it's like always above 50%. So the nice thing about working with thinner paint on wet blending is that it will tend to stay wet longer if you really load it onto the model. It'll get sticky and pasty less. It'll take more time to do that. It won't really do that. You're working with, of course, thinner paint. So that is a thing. All right, so now I've got all of these mixed up. They're each of them about, I would say, 5 or 6 drops of paint to 1 brushful or drop of water. No real difference between brushfuls and drops when I'm using, my brushes. I do everything. As you can see, I don't really have a ratio set up for the ideal ratio for blending. Although I am doing a class for ReaperCon that is going to be all about thinning your paint, and we are going to set ratios. We are going to actually, finally, nail down the ratio range for layering and glazing and everything for 3 different types or classes of paint. So essentially I'm working with pure white and then a skin tone and a medium blue and then a dark blue and a liner. And in that class, we are going to dial in how thin we need those things to get a good layering effect or a good glazing effect, so that you will come out of the class with a understanding, or at least a set of ratios, because there's always going to be a range. Like, brown liner is always going to be thinner and more transparent than other colors. I need to get in focus. Hold on, let me get camera on. There we go. That's better. So yeah, so we're doing this shoulder and we're setting it up much lighter, and I do not mind this harsh shadow here. In fact, the harsh shadow is kind of going to help convey the information that this is a very dramatic light source. Now, what I do have down here, though, is a couple of extra muscle groups, and I really should putty this in and join up these muscles. But the muscle here comes up onto the shoulder, and the muscle here comes up onto the shoulder, and then this connects through here. So there are some muscle groups coming in there. Nomad Zeke, this chat in summary, all of our weather sucks in different ways lately. You notice I am not talking about the weather here. This is because Northern California is extremely unfair to the rest of the country. Having lived in the East Coast, north of Baltimore, and in Texas, and in Wisconsin, which is a swamp, I had lived everywhere but the West Coast when I came out here. I can now say definitively that the weather here is unfair to the rest of you. There ought to be riots. Seriously. It'll be, I think it's going to be actually, I've asked for it to be a Twitch class during the con, which means that it should get saved, guys, for posterity, because it's a high utility class, and I've created it specifically for this ReaperCon. So you should, even if you miss it, you should be able to watch it forever, hypothetically. That's kind of the plan, if it get that way. But I mean, there's no, I think because it's virtual, there's no limit on signups either. So, all right, so we want to suggest these muscle groups, even though I haven't puttied here. So we want to bring in a little bit of our knoll. And I want to kind of pick up the upper edge of these muscles. Just the upper edge for now. I'm going to kind of mess around with it a little bit. I don't want these little muscle groups to be highlighted up to the level of this, but we do want to suggest, these muscle groups are coming over here from that area, because they're pointed downward, but the upper ridge of each muscle would get a little bit of light. So this is where you have to use your imagination. This is where imagination really comes in mini painting, is when you're thinking about lighting. And sometimes it's good to just block in where your muscles are, like this muscle here. Like, I know there's a muscle there. I know I want the top edge of it, at least, to catch the light. So maybe I just block it in messy, and then I go back and come in with my... And again, remember, this is where our dark shadow is for the black indigo. So this is what I was talking about, where inevitably I'm going to lose this shadow and have to repaint it. So I better have my black indigo open. But here is where I can take that wet paint and blend it in and just leave the top there. And it might take... Wet blending is not as precise as layering, and so you may have to go back and forth a bit. It's seldom something that you nail out the gate, unless you're just lucky and there's a lot of humidity that day. And I'm also kind of failing right now because I'm using the tip of my brush instead of a broad surface. Wet blending works better with bigger brushes. Let me see if I can find a number 2 something or other. Well, Kariniko, the original plan, and I cannot speak as to whether this is going to stay the deal, but the original plan was to have at least a couple classes on Twitch, and though any class on Twitch would be saved for posterity, I prefer Twitch to Zoom, so I asked if I could be on Twitch, so we'll see if I get my wish, but I might not, so we'll see. Most classes will not be recorded. And indeed, because I wanted to still have you guys value my Patreon content, I created this class specifically for ReaperCon, knowing that it will be out there for forever. I was originally going to do this topic for the Patreon as a public post, free to everybody. And I probably still will. There's no reason not to do a companion thing to go along with the class on ReaperCon. So that's the plan right now. It might not work that way. This is just the hope. I know that a lot of Twitch programming is probably going to be just, kind of like a whole bunch of different stuff. All the things that normally go on at ReaperCon, right? That you'd want to get a sample of on an online ReaperCon. So most of the classes will be gated content, but other stuff, maybe we'll do a game, a demo, maybe we'll do interviews, maybe we'll do, we'll do a whole bunch of stuff. Well, thank you, Korniko. You are totally biased. But yeah, so we'll see how it all works out. I mean, there's still meetings. Like I can only imagine at this point. It's 2 months to ReaperCon, less than 2 months to ReaperCon, well less. They're within 6 weeks. So everybody's scrambling. Everything is trying to get nailed down at this point, and probably some stuff is still floating. So I was looking for, what was I looking for? I was looking for something. Oh yeah, bigger brush. Do I have a bigger brush? I used to have a big fat number 2 Da Vinci. Let's see if I can find it. Do I have you, big fat brush? The thing is that I don't use big fat brushes in general, so I don't have a lot of them just sitting around. Most of my big ones are Raphael, and the thing is about those is that they're not big thick brushes. They've got a really fine tip. So this is the one case where the number 2 Da Vinci Maestro, let me see what I've got here. No, these are all really fine tipped. You can tell what style I paint in. I don't even have my number 2 anymore. So anything with a really fine tip is going to be better for, and by really fine tip, I mean tiny, narrow, fine tip like this Raphael. You see how, even though it's a bigger brush, it has a really, really fine tip on it. Any brush like this is going to be better at thin paint applications. It's still usable with thick paint, but it may not give you quite the brushstroke you're looking for when you're working with thick paint and you're doing big, broad areas. So that's what I'm running into with it. I do not know where my Da Vinci number 2 went, though. I should have ordered another one when we just did our brush order. If I would have realized that I misplaced it, I would have. So we're just going to have to keep going on with this. With our thinner point. Even though it tends to leave a little bit more brush strokes when you're doing wet blends. And we're going to try. And of course, part of it is my brush loading too, is that I'm unconsciously loading it only a little, which is making it leave more brush strokes than it would otherwise. If I really wanted to go for this, I would load up half of my brush with paint, and it would be a lot of paint, and we would just slobber it on. And then we would slobber more highlight paint over the top of it. And we would use that to blend with. And we would just do this whole big mass up here with a ton of paint. But I have to force myself to do that because I'm not used to it. So let's just block in this whole back arm area. See, when I'm using more of the brush, and I'm not just using the tip, I get better blending. So if you pick up this technique, you may want to get like I would say Da Vinci Maestro Series 10 size 2 was the brush that I used to have a lot of success with doing big areas like this. It may give you a little more mileage because it doesn't have quite as narrow a tip. It still has a decent tip, but it isn't quite as narrow. So all right, so we're just blocking in essentially that shoulder. If you look at it, he's hunched over, so that entire shoulder is going to be toward the light. So what I really need to do now that I've got it kind of base coated lighter, I do want to kind of make a note of where my lightest parts are going to be. So again, you can go blocking in highlights at this point with layering, just to kind of give yourself a, hey, dude, this needs to be lighter kind of visual cue. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to remember, okay, where do I need my highest highlight to be? It needs to be really bright up here. So putting in just leaving a slight shadow here, for example, to remind myself, yeah, that needs to be a little darker. And blocking in a highlight there is a good idea. I steal one of David's brushes. I don't know. What's your biggest brush, hon? Like, I'm not counting big synthetics for, like my giant.
One I just got, right?
Oh, did you just get a number 2? Oh, you got a 3. Wow. Yeah. So this is a Series 10 3. Let's compare it. So do you see how what I mean about the shape, guys? So both brushes have very good tips, right? You can see that they both have very sharp tips. But the Raphael here on the right is so much thinner. And so that's what makes this better for thin paint applications. And this is going to work much better with thicker paint, wet palette applications like this wet blending. This brush, this thick brush, this big Da Vinci is going to excel. They're the same length almost, but the narrowness of the Raphael means that I will have trouble unless I load it up with water. See, if I load it up with water or paint, see, it changes the whole shape of the brush. So that's why in order to make this work well for a big wet blending brush, I have to really load it with paint. It changes the shape, it changes the functionality, it changes how it acts. I talk about this a lot, but it's really important. And not a lot of people talk about it. But it's pure physics and how a brush loads and unloads and how that makes it better for specific techniques.
Yeah, the 3 would probably be a really good wet blend.
It would be a great wet blend. For this, yeah, for this troll, absolutely, it would be perfect. And good for Sergio stuff, too, right? Because he likes thicker paint.
Maybe. I haven't been that happy with it, actually. It's kind of splays a bit.
Oh, if you don't like it, then I'll steal it from you and beat it into submission.
Well, I don't know if I'd give it up on it yet.
Okay, well, if you give up on it, I will take it. Chances are I'll be able to thin it down and train it. Usually as I use brushes and beat them up, I tend to make them a little bit thinner and they tend to hold together actually a little bit better, so.
Do you ever use filberts?
Filberts. No, I've never. Jennifer used to love them.
I find them really useful for...
That's the rounded
blends.
tip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you have a very pointed tip, you can do detail a lot better, but it actually maybe is not... It's can be a disadvantage for blending.
It's exactly what I'm talking about.
If you're doing really small blends, it
right.
can be useful, but if you're trying to do like big broad blends, just not having that tip actually makes it easier to do that.
Yes, that's exactly what I was just talking about with shape. That's why I was showing them that because this is such a fine, tiny tip, and it's harder to get good blending with it unless I load it up. So yes, free knowledge, exactly, Jetta. Yeah, Magnetic Gumby. Yes, I talk about this a lot, about brush shape and loading and paint thinning and different palettes and how it actually contributes to your success or frustration level as a miniature painter. It has a lot to do with things, and I think not enough people talk about it. Possibly because it takes a bit of introspection as a painter to figure out what you do. Like, it's why some painters are great painters but not great teachers. And why some painters who are maybe like good painters but not the best are excellent teachers, because they've analyzed what they do and what makes it work. And you really, and the same is true of writers, actually. Some writers really distill what they do and have really figured out why it works, and others just know that they do it and the words come out, right? And so one of those is going to be able to maybe give you more mileage as a teacher than the other one. I try to be good at both. I try to be a very good painter and also give you guys a look behind the curtain, so to speak. Because I really enjoy... I like nothing better than for one of my mentorees to like enter ReaperCon and get a silver and like be over the moon about it. You know, it's like I like people to be able to exceed their own expectations. I think it teaches us that I mean, everybody says anything is possible. That's not necessarily strictly true in the most, literal sense of the word. But it is true that if you don't believe you can do something, you won't. So I like people, maybe they think they're not going to be a great painter ever, but then they realize that if they just like learn a little bit mechanically, they could be much better than they ever thought, and that makes them happy. And so that's what I like to do. That's my favorite thing when I see somebody really level up and get to a level that they never thought they'd reach. That's where I'm in my happy place as a teacher. And usually it's just little things. All right, so I'm essentially putting a dramatic shadow in on here. Hey, Reaper Collins, how's it going? Yes, and some teachers aren't great educators. Yeah, again, there's people who have a gift for explaining, right? Jim Ludwig at Dark Sword always says that I'm like one of the best miniature painting teachers on the planet, and I always think he's overstating it. But I do put a lot of time into figuring out how to teach you guys so that it sticks, right? How to explain what I do. And really break it down into nuts and bolts. You still have to do the work. You still have to sit down and paint and practice and kind of, notice the things that I'm pointing out for yourself, right? Because I can talk about this, but then until you try it and until you vary up your brush size or your paint consistency, you may not really really integrate it, right? It's internalizing versus you know it, but then you internalize it after practice so that you really can do it easily. You understand it. Well, good, Iggy. Fantastic. I'm glad you've leveled up. Yeah, I try to break it down, Magnetic Gumby. I'm glad you think so. Thank you. That's high compliment in my book. I really feel like that's where I get my happy place, is if I can break it down and make it accessible to painters who maybe thought they couldn't do it, and give them the tools they need to reach their goals. Because, a lot of people say, oh, I'll never be a great mini painter. But then in their minds, they're kind of like, but I really want to be a really good one. They won't come out and say it because that's being like, that's vulnerability. But they'll be thinking it. And so I like to give people the power to quietly think that way and be right. Adding a little bit of extra water now since we've been painting for a while, just about 45 minutes. Because I only added 1 drop of water in the beginning. So what I'm trying to do is just nail that paint consistency where I have thinned the paint down a little bit so it's more fluid and it's not going to get gunky when I put it on the model, but not so much that it gets transparent. It helps here that I've added in a little bit of vampiric mist to these 2 colors. Remember that when you add a color with white in it, it makes it a lot more opaque, so you can thin it and not lose coverage. So, yeah. Hey, Strange. Yeah, everybody likes Mr. Troll. He's very charismatic. He's just a happy troll. So I haven't gotten this as light as it needs to be. Like if I look at the face, and this is why it's good. This is where it's good, guys, to start with an area and work it all the way up until you get the dramatic effect you want. Because then when you're working on the rest of the model, you can compare it and go, oh, this needs to be really light. Like it's the mid-tone up here is probably like the knoll hide here with just a little bit of black indigo to tint it down. Like it's probably all very light. So this whole shoulder area needs to be very, very light. So I need to bring it up a lot. I might want to mix another color by hand, or I might just want to add a little bit extra yellow and vampiric to my knoll hide to bring it up. Since I'm not really using the knoll hide for anything except highlighting, it makes a bit of sense to just add white into my knoll hide at this point, since I am working on lighter highlights. So I'm going to add 1 drop. If I find that I'm constantly hand mixing a color, I'll stop and make a well of it. Like, that's pretty much a good guideline for you guys. Like, if you're constantly having to do a mix, you may as well just make a separate puddle of that color, because then you're saving yourself time. Unless you're looking for a very organic paint style where your colors vary just a little bit. Which, definitely there are painters out there that do that, and it's very cool. Yeah, thanks, Dogfather. Yeah, the face is what I concentrated on, and I really wanted to nail it before I went on to these areas so that I could really get the highlights right on the rest of it. Even this up part of the shoulder needs to be a little lighter now that I look at it, because it needs, up here you can see that I took like some knoll hide and I added the vampiric mist to it to get a really light highlight. And I don't have that level of highlight up here yet, and that's why it's not reading quite right. So what we need to do is make a lighter color. And maybe block it in at the top of each of these little bits of muscle. Now it's going to drop off a little bit as it goes down, but that's going to get it closer to where it should be. And the more vertical, the more the area, not vertical, but faces the light source, the lighter it needs to be. I could actually mix a pool at this point of this plus some white, and that would give me even more more punch, or this plus Vampiric Mist, since I'm trying to stay just with Dungeon Dwellers colors for the most part, except for the indigo. So let's do that. Let's just mix up a puddle. So now, when I'm trying to fine tune this area, that's when I'm going to go away from the wet blending, and I'm going to go to layering. Because here now, I want precision. I want to be able to add some highlights that are on the top of muscles that are more precise. I might want to glaze this entire area to make it lighter. In fact, I think I'm gonna. I have now mixed a pale chartreuse, this color, which actually is a lot prettier than I would have thought it was. I love olive greens though, like I seriously do. Give me a nice saturated olive green. I think it's gorgeous. So we're gonna spot glaze this area, this upward facing area. Remember that we don't want our glaze to pool, so I'm gonna rinse out my brush really quick, squeeze it out, and use the tip to wick off any excess that I have pooling. And that is going to see how that punched up the level of that entire area. So now it's more like the face, much lighter. And that's good. So, and if I want, now that I've got this separate puddle of the Vampiric Mist plus Null Pelt, I can maybe bring in a little bit of a highlight here, a little bit of a higher highlight with layering, a different form of blending now. So this is wet into dry, and just using it to bring up just a little bit of these muscle groups to really bring up the highlight. And I can also hit the top of this pectoral and see how that little tiny highlight really makes that muscle pop out. So even the tiniest highlight on a big model like this can mean a lot to how it visually looks. And you'd be shocked. Like, I'm doing just tiny little highlights here. I like a little tiny line at the top of the muscle toward the outside where I think the light would fall. And it really brings everything out. So keep that in mind, that sometimes it's just a very small highlight. A lot of people shy away from bringing their highlights up a lot. Since I'm moving to layering, I'm going to add more water to this Null Pelt. So yeah, so now that I'm layering and not wet blending, I'm thinning my paint a lot more. Dropping a lot of water into it because I want it to be smooth. Stupid busy? Yeah. Welcome to ReaperCon, right, Reaper Collins? Default weather for Scotland. I didn't realize. Maybe I'd forgotten, Karnika, that you were in Scotland. That's pretty cool. I liked Scotland when I was there. Even if the weather can be dicey. I liked Edinburgh a lot. There, a little bit more of a highlight there on the hip. See how that really brings up the hide? Now, if we want him to look slimy, like if we were, he's a rock troll, so he's dry, right? But if we wanted him to look slimy, what we would do is add sharp white spot highlights on surfaces that are aiming upward. And that would make us look a lot more like shiny skin. Anne's choice paint set. Well, Jenna Rose, that's kind of what I've been doing with the giveaways. Is like my choice paint sets like change every time I turn around because, you know, I've got the whole Master Series range in my head. So I definitely get paint crushes on specific colors. Like for a while there, it was definitely black indigo. Everything was black indigo. And Succubus Kiss, I think, is one of my definite paint crushes right now. But it changes, right? It changes from month to month. And so when I do the giveaways for my AMA stuff, I'm usually grabbing paints that I really am into at that particular time. Or either that or paints that I really like that don't give enough play, because maybe they're unusual or in the Pathfinder line, or they're in the Dungeon Dwellers and they don't, you know, they're later in the MSP line and they don't get as much attention. Let me thin down my troll hide now because we want to have that available for glazing if we lose a shadow. So once again, now that we are moving toward layering, now we have more control, but we thin our paint a lot more. And now I'll be using a lot less paint on my brush. And I don't know if Ed wants me to design a paint set, because he's got a lot of different paint sets coming out already. The little 6-color sets and stuff. And I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, the starter set really, the MSP starter set was created by me to be a really good representative set to start with, to give you a feel for what MSP is. It's only 11 colors, so that it's very price accessible. It's cheaper. And so that's really the Anne's choice of overall Anne's choice. Like, then there are colors that I personally love to use, but that they vary depending on, what I'm painting and what I've been painting. So now I'm kind of layering in a brighter highlight here on the shoulder. Need to bring these areas up to this. So I need to grab my chartreuse. I need this color. You know what this is? I just realized it, guys. This color is the color I always thought when I started at Reaper, I thought it was worthless. But now I have mixed it by accident, and I'm like, it is becoming my new favorite color. And what this is, remember, Pro Paint Mold? This is Pro Paint Mold. I'm looking at it, and it's like a perfect match for it. And now I have to take back all the bad things I said about mold. Yeah, I mean, there's Bones 5 Chaos. Oh, yeah, that was Anne's faves. Yeah, Daffodweir's right, Jetta. Bones 5 Kickstarter has an Anne's favorites. A Forster favorites. Yeah, and those are a lot of colors that I think people, like, would get a lot of mileage from that aren't commonly used. Yeah, that's the one I suggested for your giveaway, Gergie, because it's such a good representative set, and it doesn't come with the extras that the Learn to Paint kit does, but it's a very, unlike the first Learn to Paint kit, like, doesn't have a red in it, right? So the starter set is a better representative set that lets you paint almost anything if you're willing to mix. Good, Strange. Yeah, starter set. Oh, sweet. Yeah, those are a good, the ones I suggested for that are also a set that of really high utility, like the blues especially, Cyan Blue and Ultramarine Shadow, two of my favorite blues that I just don't see people use, except David. David loves Cyan Blue, and that's how I knew he was a keeper. Knew I'd get a laugh out of that one. It's so true. We're such nerds. We are paint nerds. It is true. But yeah, Cyan Blue and Ultramarine Shadow is so gorgeous. I just don't know why people do not glom onto that color and refuse to let it go. It's an amazing, deep, indigo-y blue with some violet in it. It's just so lovely. And so vibrant. It's such a saturated dark. I should throw a bottle of it at David and see if he gets to like it. Yeah, Ritterlich is also a very, very good dark blue, but it does have black in it, so...
I like Ritterlich.
You like Ritterlich? Yeah. Maybe you should try... If you want even more saturated and zero black, try Ultramarine Shadow. Because it's always useful. Yeah, it's always useful to have a really dark... A dark that doesn't have black in it. That's why I like Monarch Purple also.
Yeah, for sure.
Because sometimes if it's just a little black, and it depends on what you're going to be mixing in it, but just a little black isn't a big crisis or anything. It just limits what you can mix. Because it will go ashen and kind of grayish and mute out a lot. So we're adding in those little muscles there under the arm. Paint nerds, but paint aficionados? No, I think I prefer to be a paint nerd. I could be an aficionado of a nerd. You want all the colors. Yes, yes. Oh, paint does mold, actually, Dogfather. Absolutely it does. Paint absolutely can mold over time. You will often see it in normal house paints that you've had open while you were painting your house, and then you close them and they mold. Part of that is that the spores have gotten into the paint while you had the bucket open. Because you're outside, you're painting your house, you're whatever, so you are more likely to see it. But that can happen. That's why when we are nippling and capping paint, if we have nipples and caps fall on the floor, which we do every day just because people will fumble them, we sweep those up and throw them out at the end of the day. We do not add them to the top of the bottles. And that's because mold spores are everywhere. And if we do that, it's a higher chance that your paint is going to mold. I mean, it's always got some exposure to air, but at least we have a closed-in department that's kind of inside of a greater building, so we've covered our butts as much as we can, but stuff comes in from the environment. So yeah, you can definitely see paint mold. Absolutely. It's a thing that happens. But the mold I'm talking about is Reaper Pro Paint Mold Color, which was a pale yellowy chartreuse just like this. And now I think maybe I need this. I need this color. Dang it. I don't have a paint lab anymore. Maybe I should drive up to Secret Weapon and beg Justin to let me use his paint lab.
You don't need to mix paint by the bucket.
I do. I have to share with all my friends. He's made fun of me about this since the beginning of our relationship. Beyond that. Ah, yes. So. Paint sommelier. Oh, there we go. Paint sommelier. Mm-hmm.
You're definitely more of a paint sommelier than I am. Like, you can look at a shade of paint and say exactly how to mix it from, like, Reaper paint or what Reaper paint is closest to and so on. I do not have that sort of memory.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was my job for like 17 years. I dare say if it had been your job for 17 years, you could do it.
Probably.
Because it gets ingrained in you. The pigment knowledge over time. That's actually probably the hardest part of just kind of internalizing the job I used to do for Reaper is just getting to the point where you understand the pigment interactions and you can look at a color and just know how you need to start to hit it. And to hit it within, a couple tries. Like that's where you know you've really internalized pigment knowledge, base knowledge, and mixing in general. Just adding a really high highlight to the top of this muscle, and it's going to help me because then I'm going to then look at the rest of it and say, that's not light enough. And so it's going to help me push myself. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable doing a really bright highlight like this, right? You start to do it and you kind of cringe and you're like, oh, that looks weird. But usually it doesn't look weird because it's wrong. It looks weird because the rest of the model isn't highlighted up adequately. So always keep that in mind. Like if you're uncomfortable with a highlight that you just put down, I definitely need to thin this more. If your paint is not coming off of your brush, it needs more water. It is not that you do not have enough paint on your brush. It is that your paint needs more water. Paint hoarder. Yeah, Bandar. There are a lot of paints to hoard. Yeah, Miniature Monday, it's a good idea for Josh to do that. I mean, it's really useful if you want a manageable way to think about your colors, right? Because if you just got that nice small set that you can paint a whole bunch of things with, that's really nice. That's why I've been working with these Dungeon Dwellers paints, actually. Yep. Hey, Roll to Explode, thank you for the raid. Welcome, raiders. It's Anne with Reaper Miniatures and Reaper Pro Tips. We are working on the rock troll today. I've been trying. I had painted his face and his chest, but this shoulder was like not working. Not hardly painted. So I'm essentially been bringing up the highlights on the shoulder so that it looks right with the chest. So we've been working on kind of highlighting and punching our highlights to make a dramatic lighting effect as if he's in a cave and he's maybe got a shaft of daylight coming down from the outside that's just hitting one side of him. I'm keeping the other side of him at pretty heavy shadow right now on this side. The torso is more worked up than the rest of it. So that is what we're doing. And we got about a half an hour left to go. Let's see. And we're talking about paint, of course, because I used to make the Reaper paints. You also could add, although it's very out of fashion now because it's not good for your skin, but antibacterial dish soap rather than Lysol also would work, Comrade Corey. Or antibacterial hand soap, just a tiny drop, will retard microbial growth in paint. In fact, I used to put a drop of dish soap underneath my sponge on my wet palette when I was inclined to let my wet palette, sit with a cover on it for a long time because then it wouldn't mold, or at least it would help. But these days I just let my wet palette dry out and just start again, so I haven't had that problem for a while. I am a little sleepy because Kiri woke me up a couple times last night because old dog, but, other than that, Roll to Explode, I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'm going to do a raid on my own channel later also, guys, today, because we're trying to get Twitch affiliate for me on my Painting Big channel. So twitch.tv/paintingbig, just like my logo and my Patreon. So if you want to tune in, I've been working on puttying a large project. A lot of you probably saw it, but we were working on a really big horse that's metal. That's what we're working on for my stream. And I was doing the green work on the underside and on the neck to get all of that covered because there used to be a giant seam mark. So that's what we're working on today. It's such a big project that I like working on it on a stream because being with you guys helps the time go faster and I don't get as overwhelmed about the bigness of the project that I've taken on. It actually really helps. And that'll be 3:30, I think, Central is when I'm going to go on. I'll go on after my lunch. It'll be a little earlier in the day, so I should still have brain cells. No guarantees. Oh, yeah, and there's my Patreon. Thanks, Griggy. It's patreon.com/paintingbig. Everything is painting big because I like painting big things. It's good. It gives me room. It's not a Tolkien troll. Yeah, this, I mean, it may have been, like, the concept may have been based on something. I don't know, but, no, it's not the same as the Tolkien, trolls. They don't have the same sort of face or anything. And they definitely don't have gemstones on them. But yeah, I mean, that's why when we were doing the Banshee yesterday, and over the last couple days, when I was doing the ghostly to flesh look, I talked about doing a flesh to stone effect also. Because it's the same sort of thing. You would do the same sort of effect. You would pick where you're going to have your fade coming in. Usually it's up from the legs to the torso or something. Or from legs and torso up to arms and head. Usually you want the living part to be up. Because it's the more important part. You want it to be animated. You want to suggest that motion. So if you're doing like a flesh to stone painting effect, that's what you would do. I am trying to make myself punch up the shoulder. I think I'm going to glaze it. Sometimes when you're like messing around and you just haven't made a lot of progress, the answer is to just hit it with a glaze. Hit the whole dang thing with a glaze and take it up lighter. Cool, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Roll to Explode. Yeah, I'm going for more of a kind of a companionable thing, so I don't like actively teach quite as much in my personal stream, but I still explain what I'm doing. And we can just hang out. So definitely come and just hang out. It's all good. Active teaching takes a lot out of you. So, and what I'd really like to be able to do on my personal Twitch stream is to hang out with everybody and maybe, work on some projects that I wouldn't normally get to work on the Reaper stream because they're not Reaper models. So maybe some stuff for my, my commissions or whatever, and that would give us a little bit of a different subject matter. Like, there wasn't anything in Reaper that was as big and metal as that horse that's still in production. So we got to talk about a topic that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to demo much. And that was nice. I'm just bringing up this really, really pale color up here on the shoulder. As I pointed out, all of the upper part of this shoulder is going to get a lot of light. And so I want to make sure to bring up that color, that really light color, onto the top of the shoulder here. Wherever there's kind of bumps and lumps in the skin, I can leave those to emphasize them and leave a little bit of a shadow there. You definitely don't want to put like just one whole slab of light color up there. You definitely want to still differentiate between highlights and shadows and indents in the skin and stuff. Like the muscle here, I'm gonna start bringing this sucker up. I want the top of the muscle definitely to be significantly lighter. Remember, that's what we did here too, where these all are significantly lighter at the top of the muscle. And you usually want your highlight to be shaped like the area that it is highlighting. So like here, you want it to be kind of oval and long, and here you want your more of a round highlight because it's a round surface. So, Oh, thank you for the follow, Dogfather. Yeah, we actually got over 100 followers yesterday, and I only needed 50 for Twitch affiliate, so I'm super thrilled. Thanks, everybody. So yeah, the only thing I need to do now for Twitch affiliate is I do need to stream a certain number of days and hours. So that's why we are, or days and minutes, I should say. I think we're going to exceed the minutes, no problem, but I have to do like 7 or 8 days, I think, in the next 30. It's hard to fit into my schedule with all the rest of the stuff that I do, that's for sure. But once we have affiliate, we'll have it forever. So then I can like go down to a little less of a demanding stream schedule. And utilize it mostly for my Patreon and just for when I'm feeling like I want to work on this project and I want company while I do it. Maybe I want a distraction while I do it. Like I said, it's really nice to use you guys as a distraction if I'm working on a big heinous project that I'm kind of scared of. Then it makes the time go faster, and I find that I've gotten past the scary parts because I've been answering questions from y'all. It's really a nice side effect. Okay, so now I'm finally getting to the point. See, finally getting to the point where we've got a nice bright highlight up here. It's finally reading similarly to what it is down here. I'm going to bring up this muscle again. Add it even a little bit more light. Like so. So now we got some nice light coming in. And I might even want a little bit more here on the neck. Because some of this area is facing upward a bit more. So I want to be able to accent that. So there, that's a little better. Make sure I've got everywhere I need. Just have a little bit on these tendons and veins coming down his neck. Have a little bit of extra highlight there. Alrighty. Alrighty. Stream lag, oh no. Yes, I don't think I can stream without nuggets of knowledge. And like I said, you're all welcome. I don't play music on my stream. Well, one, because copyright violations, and two, because I just believe everybody likes different music. So I invite all of you to listen to quiet music of your own while I paint and talk. All right, so just a little bit on that little muscle down there to bring it up. And that may be a little bit too much. We'll see. I'm going to grab some of my lower colors and maybe blend it just a tad. But you can see what I mean about layering being much more precise, right? My brush stroke is much smaller. I'm putting it in a very exact area. You know, so it's different. Wet blending is more broad tackle of the surface, and layering gives you precision. And they're very, very different techniques, but can produce much the same effect. So I advise trying both and deciding which you like better, or if you like both, use both. I do a lot of tiny little wet blends. Like right here, I'm actually doing a tiny wet blend. Because I grabbed some of my troll color and brought it back into this highlight that I was putting on, just to make it a little bit faster. I want to make sure I'm in focus here. Hold on. I keep thinking I'm not. There. Oh, dog is still asleep. This is good. This is good. We might manage. All right. Now I gotta look kind of at this whole shoulder. I have a much sharper highlight here than I do up here, so I do need to bring up a higher highlight. And I want to put it kind of in the middle of the surface, because this is kind of a rough surface. I can leave, if I want to suggest that there's a lot of texture up here on his shoulder, then I can leave some of these brush strokes. Just a little to suggest texture. But then if I do that, I kind of have to be mindful of that on the rest of the surfaces. That's the downside of textures. The upside of textures is that you don't have to have perfect layering, because you're leaving some of the texture and brush strokes to suggest that the skin is bumpy or stony or not smooth, right? But if you do it one place, you have to do it everywhere to suggest that texture. So you've got to be consistent. So you can't choose just to kind of fudge your texture up here on this surface and then do smooth blending everywhere else. It doesn't look quite right. Although you would see more texture on areas that are starting to tip away from the light, actually. You'd see it where you start to see shadow, because that's where, you know, the light is really going to pick up that texture, right? So I'm pebbling this in right now, but I will smooth it out. Really, I just want at this point to get the highlight placement down. In all this big expanse of highlighted muscle, there's going to be areas that are brighter. Brighter, and muscle masses that are brighter. And then they're going to blend into the rest of this, so I can grab some of my knoll. I probably want to thin it again. If I really want to get smooth blends, I need to add a lot of water. Now at this point, I think I'm more at a 1-to-1 as far as paint to water on that knoll pelt. Sorry, the real name of it. So I'm going to grab some of that, and I'm going to see if it's the right consistency to blend in some of this stuff. I'm actually going to brush it over the whole surface, kind of like a glaze. Because it's really transparent. So now I did take down my highlight a little bit. But I also blended things in a little bit better. Now, if I want my chartreuse here to really layer, I'm going to need to add more water. Because if I can do brush strokes like that... And the reason that this is resisting smooth blending is that it is too thick. And there's a lot of white in this chartreusey color. A lot of white. And so the more white is in something, the harder it is to get a smooth blend with it. So you really need to get it thinned, like 2 to 1, or between 2 to 1 to 3 to 1 usually. And that's water to paint, not paint to water. A lot of water to get a pale paint to go smooth. And even then, you might need a bit of glazing to really even it out. I don't know if I like that dark shadow there either. I may need to bring that up a little. Just a little. So I may brush some of this knoll over the top of it. That's glazing to bring up an area. That's another way you can use glazing, is if you want an entire area to lighten or darken. Glazing is very good for that. And this is really a spot glaze, so I'm just painting it over the top. I'm not really flooding the area, and there's no excess water to wick off. All right, so that looks a little better now, the back of that arm. Painting while listening to Twitch. You're usually painting while you watch? That's cool, Sentimental. Yeah, I mean, it's just painting and hanging out, right? It's painting and hanging out with a really talky person, because I'm very talky on this show. It feels wrong when I'm not talking and explaining what I'm doing. It actually, I've had to, like, I'm going to have to work on it for my private Twitch thing, where I don't feel like it's wrong if I'm not, like, babbling at you guys. It might be Anne's Get Stuff Done stream. Though, like I said, I'm going to explain when I do something. It's just habit at this point. If I've got somebody watching me do something, I think it's almost impossible for me not to explain. Gonna kind of feather this color in to make a blend there. So you can see how layering blending on big surfaces is much slower, right? Because you're using tiny brush strokes, you're trying to be precise. And so really, if you're trying to do faster, you really want to use a wet palette, thicker paint, and do wet blending. Like, that's really what you want. So remember that these techniques are definitely better for certain things than others. Alrighty. Oh, my David is fleeing the building. Well, no, fleeing the room. Oh, needs caffeine. I see. I don't have the option of stopping for more caffeine right now. That's alright, though. I won't hold it against him. At least he closed the door so the espresso machine will not be as loud. Alrighty. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Oh, thanks, VO33. Thank you for the sub. And thank you for the nice comment, too. If it's too quiet, I may not be able to focus and get something done. Yeah, I mean, it's when you're used to background noise, right? And I'm actually not used to background noise. Like, when I'm working on my projects, I actually like quiet or I like music. If I listen to something that's too informative or I try to do an audiobook or something, sometimes I don't get as much done or I can't concentrate quite as well. Music is really my sweet spot. Like, if I want to just sit and, like, really groove on a project, I'll put my my noise blocking headphones on and I'll just put on music and go. Alright, so this arm is definitely rough. I have roughed in the back of this arm and it is very, very rough. Rough, rough, rough. So now is a time when I wish I still had my thicker paint around, because then I could wet blend. I could try to wet blend with thinner paint. Yeah, but David makes coffee caffeine, and I prefer tea caffeine. I also try to minimize my caffeine in the morning. I give myself a cup of Earl Grey in the afternoon,
Miss
right
Ann,
around. Yeah, hi.
I'm back.
Justin's back, guys. Disembodied voice Justin has returned. Everybody said hello to you, and you weren't here. I told
Sorry,
them,
guys.
yes, that's okay.
Real quick though, I'm gonna hop up a channel because there's some con business I have to take care of real fast, and I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Oh, sure. You've got time. 10 minutes. Justin appears. Justin disappears. Haha. But yeah, so Justin will return shortly in time for us to end the stream. There we go. So I wet blended that with thinner paint, and it worked okay. It's just not going to be, I mean, it's pretty much like wet blending with washes at this point. So it's not going to be as opaque. You're going to be able to see through it. And that's not always great, but when you have something already laid down like you do here, it's not like a crisis. I mean, you probably could wet blend with washes just fine. Because you have an underlying mock-up of what you've done already to work from. You would definitely need to use less paint on your brush, though, because washes, it's so fluid. The layering consistency is pretty much a wash consistency. So, since it is so fluid, it's easy to lose control of it when you put too much on. So that's why you want to definitely have less paint on your brush when you're working with thinner paint. Just kind of trying to get this elbow to kind of read right. And blend in these guys. That's coming along. Does it look okay from the back? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the problem, Twisted Doma. That's why I've never really thought I wanted music on stream. It's just sometimes people like your music and sometimes people don't. And yeah, using your music that you like is definitely an individual statement, and people who are your fans maybe want to know what your favorite music is. But then the people who really don't like what you like are kind of like turned off by it. So.
And I'm back.
That was short.
Yeah, it was a quick question about some tech stuff.
Oh, okay. Tech stuff. Well, we've made a lot of progress today without you. We've been working on the shoulder.
You guys clearly don't even need me.
I probably should be closer. Oh.
In fairness, though, Ann, I'm pretty sure people show up to this show about 98% of the time for you.
Not for disembodied voice, Justin.
Aww. There has to be. There might be one person in the crowd right now that only shows up for me, but I don't think that's likely.
They missed you, though. They say so.
Little beep. Is there? It shouldn't be picking up a little beep. Is it beeping on your end? Is it
it beeps. Up? It beeped on my camera, guys. When I focus, it beeps. Or, oh, no, it's the Discord. Maybe it's the Discord because you burble when you come in. Like connection burble.
Oh, gosh, Image. That's there's no one that wants that.
We will lose viewers faster than ever before. If you want to test, if by test stream you want it to be how fast can we lose our viewership?
Salmari, is that a new name? I don't feel like I've seen that one. How are you, Salmari? And Ann and I did briefly talk about that one day, maybe getting me on here and see if Ann can bring me from 0 to at least semi-competent.
Yeah, we did. We did think about it. Yeah, we did think about it. Yep. We're not sure if that's why people tune in or not is the thing. It's like when you've got a stream, you've got a certain target audience and a certain goal, and so that's what we were curious about is whether that would help people or if it would not be as popular.
Well, thank you for talking in chat. That's great. It's good to see you, Salmari.
You usually lurk. Yes, well, that's cool. The lurkers keep us going too,
I could probably do that, Gergie. I could lay down a base coat. I know I can do that. I've done that. And I'm pretty sure I can paint a shadow miniature all black. I could probably do that. I would glob it on, so you're going to lose a lot of detail, but
I would have to look at your previous work, Justin, to assess your level and what we would most want to work on. Because that's the most useful thing, is if I look at your previous work that you're like, oh, this wasn't that bad, and then I'm like, oh, okay, you need to do this next. You know, that kind of
is
thing.
there an all of it button?
It's never all of it. It's never all of it. There's always a next step. Always.
You know what? That's actually that's a good idea, Canadian Gecko. They said it would help them as a newbie because they could see me tackle the exact issues they're facing. So actually, it could bring its own level of value in my struggle.
Justin's struggle could be meaningful to all. Oh, we can consider it. We certainly can. We'd have to figure out what model. I know you wanted to do Gormaw, although he is massive.
Yeah, I just love Gorma. I don't know. It's low key, although not really, because I'm just telling you guys, it is absolutely my favorite Reaper miniature. I'm pretty sure.
That's really funny. Just a big tubey mouth with teeth.
I think it reminds me of Dune a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah, the sandworms.
Yeah, maybe even like Trimmers too, like lot movies that were important in my childhood.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I just look at it and I'm like, it's very cartoony. It's a very cartoony sculpt, so it's very simple, which could be good and could be bad because big broad places actually are a little harder to get like blending and stuff on. Although it also does give you a lot of room to practice it. We would not do too much of that anyway with you since you're such a beginner. Probably we might go for pattern scales. We might go for basic layering. And then you could up it if you felt like it. I don't want to the thing is with the first model, you'd want to just get comfortable with a couple of new terms. You don't want to throw yourself at everything all at once. Because then you just get frustrated. Then you're just like, oh, this looks like butt. I don't like it. Rawr. I used to love this model. Now I hate it. I don't want to hear that, so.
Oh, you know, I have more than enough confidence in that you will. I think that even with me, an absolute, neophyte when it comes to this, that I think you could guide me to a model that looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, yeah. All right, all right.
I have complete faith in your ability.
Good.
Very little in my own, but complete faith in yours.
Well, maybe we'll try one session of that. We'd have to figure out how to put Justin's worm on camera, though. That sounded bad.
Phrasing?
Yes, phrasing.
I think I know how we can do it.
Yeah, do you have, I mean, we can do like
do.
2 cameras on one screen, right?
Correct. We can, the way I think we would work it is we would probably have it broadcast through my vMix, and I'll have you call in with your cameras, and
I see.
we'll organize them. Now it will only be my
minicam.
My minicam. You will not see my face.
Yes, it's not time for you all to just sit and stare wistfully at Justin's mug. You'll you girls out there, sorry ladies and guys if there are any that are into Justin, I'm afraid you're just gonna have to deal with staring at Justin's model if we do this.
Yeah, you can't stare wistfully.
Wistfully because you're unavailable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thus the choice of adverb there.
I haven't heard that word in a while, though. I liked it. Corvée did ask, though, what color is that for the darkest shadow in his skin?
Oh, the troll? Hold on.
I assume not my skin.
Not Justin's skin. All right, so this is the one non-Dungeon Dweller color that I've been using. It's Black Indigo. It was a special ReaperCon color, but it is coming out in the Bones 5 paints, guys. So get ready to buy the bejeebus out of this, okay? Buy a lot of it so that it stays in print. I'm going to order 5 bottles myself once it becomes available. Yeah, it's the darkest shadow. I went with as you can see actually right now, you can see the blue-purple in those shadows. I didn't go with black. I wanted some color. I wanted some liveliness to the shadows. Plus, this lets me use this color also as a shadow for these purple crystals up here. So that helps tie the whole thing together, that I'm using the same shadow for all this. And that is... once Bones 5 ships, then the paints will be released real chibi. But everything has to fulfill first. But, you know, we're getting up toward there. When is fulfillment supposed to be? Do you remember, Justin, on Bones 5?
I was given some information recently
Uh-huh.
that is not public.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's meant also not to get people's hopes up because, you know, obviously it's easier to say, well, this could happen. And then if it does, great, right? But
yeah,
otherwise,
right.
the schedule is for April of 2021.
Okay, all right. So a ways yet, a ways. But in the meantime, then, if you guys want to mix something that's similar to this, I think I gave the recipe in a Patreon thing that I did. But it's, I think it's two drops of clear magenta, 1 drop of clear blue, 1 drop of pure black. Might be 2 of blue and 1 of magenta, but I think it's got more magenta than that. So... something like that. Mix those 3 pigments, you'll get very close. So yeah. Yeah, I'm afraid that, yeah, I imagine it's delayed because COVID, right, Justin?
I believe so.
Yeah, because
yes.
it's just it's gonna impact everything. It's, if you mix pure black and clear blue and clear magenta, and I think it might be 2 drops of clear black, 1 drop of blue, and 2 of magenta. Don't quote me on that. I remember that I did this mix for Patreon, and I think I did like 4 drops of X, 2 drops of Y, 3 drops of, you know, C, and whatever. But I do not remember off the top of my head what the mix was. But it's clear blue, clear magenta, and pure black are the 3 colors that you want to mix to get close to this. And you'll want to put more magenta in than you think. Yeah, so you can mix a similar color with clear blue, clear magenta, and pure black. Clear blue is 9097, clear magenta is 9098, and pure black is 9037. So you can get very close. Very, very close.
Curiosity, Miss Ann, since we're
yeah.
kind of coming to an end here.
Yeah.
Did you plan on streaming this afternoon?
Yes, I am. Actually, I told them earlier that I'm going to. I'm going to stream at 3:30 Central Time.
Central Time. Okay, so 2.5 hours from now.
Yeah, more or less. I thought I would stream earlier in the day. I usually have more brain cells earlier in the day. I'm not as good of an instructor later in the day. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because Reaper doesn't have a show on that, right?
No, we do not.
Yeah, because I didn't want to overlap Reaper programming, but I want to get my Twitch affiliate.
We could here pretty soon have a show on Wednesday afternoon, but the exact timing is not solidified yet.
Oh, okay. Is it likely to be earlier or later, or have you not even talked about it?
That show could be occurring, I think, maybe the first couple of weeks of August, potentially.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's around the corner, but like we're trying to determine if we want to launch it or even manage it, because every show we launch, I have to personally be there for, right?
Right, until it gets in a groove.
Manage it correct, and I have to manage it, and that's a whole lot right now with ReaperCon planning still going on.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'll be doing this. To get affiliate, I have to be doing it for the next few weeks. So because I need to get those 7 separate streams in. So yeah, let me know if you do start up a new show, and then I can tune my stream times accordingly.
Hey, Zambies, you guys are my life. Right?
Justin does not have a life otherwise.
You know, this job takes a lot of work and effort and planning. I mean, I love it too, just to clarify. But it does. It's a lot of work. Feels like I'm actually running a small business. That's what it feels like.
Well, right, because you're running a small department in a big company, and that really is like running a small business of your very own. I mean, the paint department felt like that for sure. I felt like I was running a paint company, so I totally get you. I totally feel that. I'm putting some black indigo down under the shadows here. I just had to take off a mold line because I was annoyed at it. And put some dark shadow up here. You can do that, by the way, guys. You can totally just take off a mold line and just repaint over it. It's pretty easy with bones. Doesn't really make a difference. There we go. This is your afterlife. I don't think he is Kimiko. If it's still under discussion, then usually we won't say who we might invite to stream, unless you can. I mean, can you, Justin?
Well, okay.
I wouldn't unless you're sure.
No, so the person is absolutely going to have a show. The particular is what we're still working out. I also don't want to I don't want to get people's hopes up too much, but I will say that it is going to be with is very likely going to be with Luca from Miniature Stead.
Oh, neat.
Now, as to all of the other details, that's the stuff we're still working out. So
yeah,
a hard reveal. We're still going to do a hard reveal at some point. We're just not sure how that's going to be and what it's going to look like yet.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Cool. I forget. Do they like my paint on Miniature Stead? I don't remember if they use a lot of Master Series.
He does. I believe he uses Master Series. I believe he does seem to really enjoy Reaper's
Yay,
paint.
I love that.
He was really excited about working with us. I know that he.
Oh, good. So Reaper fan.
Luca does like our products. So
awesome. Fantastic. Well, that makes me feel good. I just like it when they like my paint. So I've got some green up here that I've totally neglected, guys. This strip of green down the middle that I probably need to color in. But you know what? It's 5 after 11, so we've actually gone over our hour and a half. So remember, if you want to hang out with me this afternoon, I'm going to be on my own Twitch thing, twitch.tv/paintingbig, and we'll be over there around 3:30 Central. And I would
Reaper be hosting.
Huh? I don't know if Reaper will be hosting that. It depends on whether Justin has me set up on auto host. Are you going to be hosting me, Justin? How does that work when you've got a bunch of different streamers on auto host, by the way?
I don't know how there's a priority you can set up, but I do have you on auto host.
Okay.
I can see if at the bare minimum, I think maybe if you're willing to, I don't mind sending a raid over to your channel, even though it's not live, so people can follow you and kind of tune in and let people disperse from there if they want.
Ah, okay. All right, cool. That would be cool.
But to be fair, I don't know how the priority list works. Sometimes I think it doesn't work like it's supposed to. We have so many people on our auto host, it kind of seems to pick and choose.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm just telling you guys. Babies. You guys can all come over. But yeah, I mean, just give me a follow if nothing else. And then if you get on Twitch and look at people who are alive that you followed, then you can see me. And we'll go for an hour and a half for sure this afternoon because I want to work on Mr. Horse. So Mr. Horse is going to get worked on. I may even prime Mr. Horse to see what other areas I've really got to prep. So yeah.
So actually, you know what? Why don't we raid Dices and then you guys can hang out there until the end show starts.
Yeah, there we go. So give Dices some love. Blame her for us spending money on pretty miniatures because, she has definitely caused us to do so recently by showing awesome miniatures on her stream. Yes, indeedy. And I'll see you guys later. Alrighty. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Don't forget, tomorrow morning we have more Anne. That's the next show we have. Spread the Reaper love. Keep being awesome. And we're glad to see you guys. Thanks.